probably all thinking I'd rather be in the pub, but hopefully tonight this will be a much better experience than just being in the pub. My name's Lynn McDougall. I'm an ex-athlete, a sometime coach, and at the moment I'm doing some work on a voluntary basis with the GAA endurance group. So we're a group of coaches from Glasgow who are all trying to really improve the standards in endurance running and athletics. And the GAA group, it does a number of different things in terms of trying to improve competition, trying to improve training and get athletes running together. And the other aspect that we're interested in is coach education. And this is one of a number of opportunities we've put on over the year. We've invited Lachie here tonight to talk to us about his experiences of athletics, how he used to train, and it's going to be a kind of question and answer section. So you'll have a chance from the floor to ask questions that you've wanted to ask about over the years. I'll just do a little bit of an introduction to Lachie. For a lot of you, won't need any introduction. He's probably remembered as one of the most iconic moments in Scottish sport at the Meadowbank Games in 1970 when he won the 10k in a sprint finish there. But Lachie's also done a lot of other different events as well. I was just talking to him earlier that his first international was actually in the 3k steeple, and he was also a member of the British Olympic team in the 1972 Olympics. The 28:11 that he did in the Commonwealth Games was then a Scottish record, but you're still on the all-time list, and I think the 28:11, it's hard to remember, but it's hard to think that that was 41 years ago. And last year I think we've only had Andrew Lee that's probably run under 29 minutes in the last few years. Correct me if I'm wrong. Only some of us will remember 41 years ago. Unfortunately, I do remember 41 years ago as well. But some of the youngsters probably don't know so much about you, but it's a good chance to hear about that. That guys were running such fast times so long ago. And this seminar actually builds on one that we had with Ian Stewart, because he was also a contemporary of yours. And you were just telling me how you'd beaten him in a sprint finish. You'd never been beaten in a sprint finish as well. So I've got some questions to kick us off, because sometimes folks are a bit quiet and a bit shy from the floor, so I thought I might have some questions to kick us off and then we'll open it up. How did you get started in athletics in life?
Well, I think it's like most youngsters at school. I don't know whether they get as much athletics now as I did then. Really, even academy was next to a public park, and they had a round circle on it, exactly 440. So I was always quite good at the school sports. So the local gym teacher said she joined the local athletic club, which was actually about 400 yards from where I stayed, Melbourne Park. So I went along there, and there wasn't any coaches down there, but they used to all sort of work out what we were going to do, and so I'd be down there and joining some of the lads, and we'd do about 400s, a nice long recovery, and then after that, night is young, the sprinters were down there doing their sprint training, so I joined in the sprinters as well, doing 30, 40 yard starts. Yeah. And I don't know whether this is where I got my sprint finish from, because no matter how tired I was at the end of a race, I could always sprint. I don't understand it.
So what age were you when you were doing it?
I'd be about 15, 16. Right. Funny thing is, I then down there at the tail end of the summer, and I was running with all these lads, and nothing was happening, because at that time there wasn't a lot of meetings for boys of that age, and so I more or less gave it up. And when my uncle, he worked in a factory with an uncle of mine. This uncle worked with the club secretary, so he told him this was mid-December, the March Championships was on the following day, so I wanted to go in, so and I went, and I won the boys' race with 80 yards. So,
what was that, an 800?
No, this was cross country.
Oh, cross country.
This was the cross country championships in December, which I think we still have in different counties. So that more or less started me off, and then the next race I had was, I think it was mid-February, and that was the Nigel Bars race, which is at Bellahouston Park. And I was leading that, and I got misdirected and ended up in second. The lad that won it was Mike Ryan, of marathon fame, who was a Scot, came from Stirling. And so the next race I ran after that was the Scottish Cross Country Championships, which was held at Hamilton Racecourse. And this was the first boys' championship. So, lo and behold, I went out there and won that. And who was second was Mike Ryan. It's quite an ironic twist. But so that more or less started me off. But so I was just going down to the club, the Tuesday and Thursdays, and at that time we were actually running from a wee hut that I had in Jamestown, which was a pub house, just running around Alexandria. So a year later I started an apprenticeship in Glasgow. And of course I went to night school 3 nights a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Couldn't have picked better nights. That was your training night. So I ended up going out on Mondays and Wednesdays on my own, just going round Alexandria. And so the following year I was always within the first 3 or 4. And yet with the smaller amount of training I was doing, because I wasn't into the company of the other athletes. And the Vale wasn't a bad club at that time. And because one of the athletes actually ran the Empire Games in Cardiff, and one of the other lads, a guy Palm White, he made the cross-country team, the international team as well, so it's not a bad stand-up. Over the course of time, me running up, that was my pattern for about 3 or 4 years. I never did all that much. I do maybe win races in the county, but not out with the county as such. But when I served an apprenticeship, I then went to dental hospital within a couple of days of serving my time. So I didn't work on a Saturday, which I had to do to serve my time. And many times I went to the central station, ran along the platform, jumped onto a train, came down to Dam Park or wherever, and out to Shots. So I then started running from, I actually stayed in Homely. I stayed about 500 yards from here. And then I moved over to Homely Road. So when I moved over to Homely Road, I then worked at the dental hospital, and I used to go out in the mornings, 7 o'clock in the mornings, up to Clarkston. That was my morning jog, up to Clarkston, back down again. Didn't train at lunch times, came back home, and out in the evenings. And as I said, I never had a coach as such. But even when I was with the Vale Harriers, they were still doing the same. I used to get out with the parents at weekends and that. But over the years, just I developed my own style, but I got a book, and I wasn't all that bright at school as such. I was more into fun and all that. And I got a book from one of the best final year students, and then I took it into mechanics. So I got a book with Franz Stample, who coached all the English greats, Bannister, Chatterley and all them. So I was running the running track at Westlands, but I did go out there during the summer nights, and we would be running, maybe say 6 400s. So I then looked at his book, and of course he was more into bulk during the winter months, and of course I then started doing some more bulk. And as I say, I was still going out to my parents' house at weekends. So again, I'd be into Melbourne Park on the Sundays, and climbed the wall actually, because the place was closed, along with another friend of mine. So then I said, well, I'd Bobby Montague, and so I said, right, I'm going to try doing some of these other sessions. So instead of doing 4 or 6 400s, I'm going to try and do 16 and half the recovery. So I ended up doing the 16. So that was the pattern of my training from then on, was more bulk of repetitions with shorter recoveries, but not walking during the recovery, keep running. The funny thing is, within 3 weeks of me doing this, my performance started to improve, which you'd have thought it would have took a nosedive, training harder, and your body not being used to it, so it seemed to improve from that.
But you had a lot of basic speed, because I've heard from there that you've done 10-8 for 100 yards.
Yeah, that's the real harriers.
So that's when you started off. And you started off relatively late from your son, about 15,
Yeah.
16. And then, so you built, and then you started doing these sessions, and then it sounds like you kind of built in quite big sessions quite quickly.
Yeah,
But you still had to cope with all the work of an apprentice and night school and stuff like that. What kind of other training were you doing apart from the big sessions at that time?
well, the type of sessions I was actually doing was, as I say, I would do between 16 and 2400s, and I would jog half a lap. If I was doing 200s, I'd be doing maybe about 30 of them, and jogging, using the four corners of the track, just jog the bends.
Was this for the 5k or 10k?
This was mainly for steeplechasing. No, but I was still doing 5,000 metres. Well, because obviously earlier on, maybe a year or two earlier, that's when I was doing the 800 metres. I think I had a 53, 800, 400 under my belt as well. And but from that, I say I was only doing roughly two track sessions a week, because I was then starting to do more sort of bulk. I was doing my training in the roads. I always did 10 miles, and I always thought 10 miles was always an ideal distance, not 8, 10. And as I say, I was only doing two track sessions, and occasionally I would maybe do one on a Sunday at this park. The track sessions, although as I say, there were only 2 of them, and I was doing the steady runs. And I don't know whether any of the other any of you the lads that when you run yourself, you get to a certain stage of fitness. I always found that when I was doing a steady run every so often, I'd feel I'd want to run faster. But there again, doing a 10-mile run, you think, maybe not last this. So what I would then do is, I would add about 4 or 5 faster bits into it, maybe say between 400 and 600 yards, just increase the pace, but not that much that you're really thumping the ground. Because there again, with the shoes we were wearing, Tommy Patterson here was talking about that earlier on, he phoned me up, we were using tiger cubs. They're glorified sand shoes. not like the shoes you've got nowadays, like carpet slippers. But so I was doing these class bits, but there again, the way I regulated it was so that when I finished or eased off, I could still run at the same pace I'd started at. And this kept it going, this regulated the pace. And I then started going out to Westerns at lunchtime. I met a lad, Mike Bradley, from Paisley Harriers. I used to get a run out with him in his car and we'd do some sessions in Westlands, but we never used the track. We always used the grass. Down the backside of Westlands was 300. Do a gentle turn at the bottom, and along the other end up was a 400 that nobody ever broke 60 on. And then a 600 is down the straight, do a gentle turn and run up along the side of the running track. Never used a watch. Didn't have a watch. But it was all just hard running. And what I used to do in some of these sessions when I was at Westlands, I used to run myself right out down the ground. Right into the ground. Because I'd set out to do, say, 16 or 20 400s. And once I'd done them, I thought, I think I'll try and squeeze another one out. Sometimes I could have squeezed another 3 or 4 out. And maybe do the last one. Unbeknown to me, it was the last one. I got halfway down and that's it. I could run myself out completely.
Yeah.
And I would do the same with the likes of 200 metres. And sometimes I would run the 200s in the track. And as the seasons progressed, the bulk was always done during the winter months, running up after the turn of the year. Say at the end of January, I'll start to decrease the amount I was doing, but increase the recoveries. So that by the time I hit April, mid-April, I was then maybe only running about 8 400s, and I would then be taking a bit slower recovery. But I'd really be flying at them again. I'd probably run in the region of 57s, 58s, doing between 8 and 10 of them. And for a couple of years, Graham Grant and Dick Hodlett, they started training out there. So every so often I'd be jumping in with them. This was during their summer training. And the funny thing was, I was taking them to the cleaners on their sessions. They were training for 800 metres, and yet I was the one left running. And this again brings me to the point that I feel a lot of the athletes they do a lot too much speed. To me, the grounding was endurance. It's easy. To me, I always found it was easy to build in speed, but harder to get endurance. And I used to run, miles, and just your mind used to wander. As most of you lads, if you run, your mind does wander. When you're on your own, it's different when you're a bit company. You can always chat to each other, but most of my sessions were on my own, unless I was running at Westlands.
I think there's the way that you describe it, there's a couple of things there that some of the modern athletes maybe neglect a bit more, is the 10-mile runs. And Alan, my partner, I can hardly get him to stop doing a 10-mile run. That's what he's got to do every night. He says, oh, well, Lachie always said, and if you do a 10-mile a day, that's all right. And the kind of fartlek type running that you're in.
Yeah, well, that would be like my road running, actually.
Yeah, so it's kind of running a slightly higher tempo. And it sounds like quite a lot of the running you were doing is quite high tempo as well, as having quite a lot of speed work in. But it sounds as though a lot of it was quite intuitive for you.
Yeah, as I said, I always ran how I felt.
Yeah. And
another thing was, John Anderson in 1970 slated me for running too much, racing too much. Because I would go to some of the meetings and I'd run on a 5,000 and maybe jump into a 1,500. And I actually loved racing on Saturdays. And if I was into my work on Mondays and I hadn't raced at the weekends, I felt there was something missing. Yeah. But I was saying to Lynn earlier, I was looking through one of my old scrapbooks from when I was with Vela leaving Harriers, and I way back even to 1964. I was still running two events, 100 metres and 800s. This is at the Bartonshire Championships. And in these days, the early 60s, you had a lot of likes of works races. You had Babcock's and Wilcox, which is at Renfrew. You had the Singer Sports, you had the Ranger Sports, and you also had the Glasgow Police. So with a lot of these races, and the funny thing is, these races were all on Saturdays. There was no sport in Britain. I don't know when Britain started having sports events on Sundays, but they were all on Saturdays. And I went over to the Commonwealth Games. I was doing a lot of cross-country running. Once I got to a certain stage, from 1962 onwards as a junior, I was making Scottish junior teams. So there was a lot of cross-country races in the continent then, and they used to go over there. Their races were all on the Sundays. And so I used to just go over the Saturdays and run the Sundays, and I had to get time off from work on the Mondays, but it was only one Monday I used to get time off, and the hospital was quite good actually. Plus the fact I was actually winning quite a lot of races, so it wasn't as if I was just going over and making up the numbers. So I was actually quite good there.
But at that time when you were running, can you picture a bit about what Scottish athletics was like? Was there a lot of runners that were training together, or was there just one or two, or did people train together a bit more than they do now, do you think?
A lot of the clubs actually, I've often found that if you get one good run on a club, you'll quite often get a few more later on, because the other runners will latch onto that. Shetters and Harriers are a typical example of that. Because they've always had a good nucleus around. I'm not biased, by the way, John. But it's true, if you look back and all the runners that Shettleson's had, Victoria Park's another one. When you've got a couple of good runners, they train and you'll get others joining in. My son, when I started training my son, this was years later, I ended up training another 6, just because they joined in. They all became quite good, but they never reached the junior ranks, which again is quite soul-destroying for coaches, because it happens quite a lot. You can spend a lot of time coaching youngsters, and then once they start working, going with boyfriends or girlfriends, it's easier to not to run. So, and the modern style now is a computer. But at that time, I think what actually helped me, and also Ian McCafferty, was each other. Because if we turned up at a race meeting, Ian and I, it was a ding-dong battle, and looking back in a lot of the cuttings that I've got, Ian and I's races were the highlights of the sports meetings. You know, and yet you've got Ming Campbell and Les Piggott running 100 metres, that they always seem to look on the 3,000 metres or the 5,000 metres, and sometimes Ian beat me, sometimes I beat him. But mainly I beat him in over the last 100 metres, but he never beat me over the last 100. If he beat me, he got away from me earlier than that.
Sometimes fear that I think that young athletes don't like to race as much now.
But there again, this is where I found that I love to race. And this, you know, as an example, I went to the Olympics in '72. In 1971, after I won the medal in '70, I got injured early on. It was in Tunis, in cross country, and I was off for a couple of months with a sore shin. So I never did much in '71, although I came out at the end of the season. '72, I couldn't get any races. And the first race I ran outside Scotland was to go down to the Crystal Palace for the 3 Championships. And the situation with the association was such that I wasn't even included in their team. So there was an old boss of mine who I served my time with, he paid my expenses down to the 3 Championships, which I then second in that, doing a qualifying time for the Olympics. And then the next race I ran outside Scotland was at the Olympics. The funny thing is, we went up to St Moritz for 3 weeks training prior to the Olympics. And of course Lachie Stewart was there, and Dave Bedford. And of course I was training with Ian quite a lot. And I would safely say I was taking Ian to the cleaners in some of these sessions. And Bedford, I was stopped out at Bedford in the mornings as well, saying to Ian, he stops a hell of a lot to tie his laces. He says that's because I've got the better of him. McCafferty, I don't know how many times McCafferty stopped races with stones in his shoes and loose shoes and restraints here and there. But so I went down to the Olympics thinking, I should really run well here. And in the heats, 2 laps to go, I thought, God, I'm here. And there's an Ethiopian, Yifter his name was. Yifter the shifter he was called. He just stuck the boot in. Of course, I didn't have any response. And I was really cheesed off at this. Why? But a month later it struck me. I never had any races outside Scotland. They're all just local races. Although I was running the weekend myself, I never had the quality races. And yet, I would safely say I was running better than Lachie Stewart. I wouldn't say I'd beaten Bedford right enough, because I was quite friendly with Bedford actually, and at that particular time, there was word going round, oh, he was 200 miles a week. Lachie Stewart says he tried it, he says he wasn't worth a button. He only did that for a week. But he said, Bedford said, he says, he says, I did that for 6 weeks. But there again, it was written in the Bible, he did this every week.
Every day.
It's in the Bible, he does it every week. You know. But I tried that myself, funny enough, when I was running to and from my work. What I did only did it for 3 days, I couldn't go 4. Was 10 miles to my work, 10 miles at lunchtime and 10 miles home. And I did that for 3 days. And see, the 4th day, straight into the hospital, with 4 miles, 4 miles back. And that was my effort. So, and that was endurance running. I was quite a good endurance runner at the time. But basically, I always felt that my basic training was always based on endurance type running. And my sessions, as I say, was mainly shorter recovery sessions. But I could also run myself flat out. You know, occasionally I would do 100-metre sessions, and down the track, as fast as I could. I would only manage 8 of them, and yet I could go out and run 2400s, and yet I could only manage 800 metres flat out. I used to find that my legs, the way my legs responded, you know, it was as hard as I could possibly go. I don't know whether anybody has ever tried that.
Would I walk back?
Just a walk back. But I'd walk further back and then I'd jog up to the line and then right into it again.
Does anyone from the floor want to ask any specific questions about training?
The other way I actually found it, somebody asked me a while back there, like, how did you know what training to do? As I say, I based it originally on Franz Stampfel, but over the years I then developed my own style that was then still based on that type of running. And as I say, during the summer months there was a lot more speed into it. but never anything less than 200 metres. As I say, occasionally, 100 metres, very occasionally. But I used to always find that if I went into a race and I was short, say I would find it hard at the start, short of breath sort of thing, that was lack of speed. So I then worked on speed, went more speed for the next couple of weeks, or was in a race and I found, I'm not here. You know, this is in the course of the race, not early on, but a bit more distance. That's how I always regulated it. The other thing was in races, you know, names never. I could respect names like Ron Clark, and he was my god really, as he was everybody's god at the time. But there's other guys like English guys, Bruce Tullow, Mike Freary, even and Jim Alder. You know, I mean, these names, to me they were names, but they were there to be beaten. I always had a go. This is what I always told Glen that. Have a go. I never said, I wouldn't say I coached Laurie Spence, but I gave Laurie a lot of advice. His brother ran with me, so I used to tell Jimmy's brother what he should do in 10-mile runs and all that. So Laurie went to one of the junior internationals, I don't know if it was Belgium, but he said, he said, I just blew up. I said, there's nothing wrong with that. I says, now you know the speed you need to run at. You know, and that was my attitude. Train yourself to run at that speed.
Did you do anything to sort of prepare yourself psychologically, say, when you were coaching a championship or something?
I think when you're actually 100%, but I think 80% of your mental attitude comes into play here. You've got to have the confidence in yourself to go out and do it. You know, I think that's the problem with footballers. You know, they go out in a game, oh, this is going to be an easy game here. You know, Rangers and Celtic are typical of that. The other club slaps a wee goal in. You can't lift their game. Simple as that. But that's it. The attitude I had, as I say, when I was running a hard race, when you had, it depends on the race. If I was running, say, like a Scottish Championship, my training would alter for the week. But when it was just the likes of Western District Championships, I would alter the Thursday and Friday training. The Friday training is usually only about 2 miles. I used to run with Eddie Ewan's husband at Westlands at that time. He used to be around and he's keeping fit from the university, so I would run a couple of miles with him at Westlands and then get the train back to Dental Hospital rather than run back. I never started running from the Dental Hospital until March of 1970. That might have been a bearing on how I ran in Meadowbank in 70. So I moved departments in the hospital from one department to the other department of orthodontics, because these braces I was making, and they're about 10 minutes longer. And so I started running from the hospital out to Westlands, and I would do about a 7-8 mile session out there, and I would run back. But there again, because I said I could run myself into the ground, I was coming back sometimes, and I'm going up the stairs to where the restroom was. I see the stars. You know, somebody would come down the stairs, it'd just be a black shadow. You know, I was so shattered. But I get so used to doing that. You know, I can run myself like that. And I always felt then the benefit of that then was when I eased off, the energy get flooded back. It was like Ron Hill talking about his diet for his marathon. Same idea. You know, as soon as you eased off, the energy came back. But there again, I also counteracted that with faster sessions as well, you know, prior to say major races.
And prior to the major races, you would cut down in the bulk and do more on speed. What do you think people need to do a bit more of nowadays then, in terms of
the younger runners, and I actually got anyone, or somebody was asking, what do you think I should do? I says, right. I says, go out and run on your own. So get in the local park and just run and see how you feel, and try and do about 4 or 5 miles. You know, and once you can do that for about 3 or 4 weeks, then start adding a wee bit of speed into it in the running track. And again, it would be short recovery. What I would then get them to do was run 100 metres in the outside lane on the track and just jog the bends. Keep running and do about 10, 12 laps of that. Once they could do that, they could then do any other types of sessions. They would just build on that from doing 100 metres, then start doing 200 metres with the 200 yard recovery. Just jog, and I always found that it was better to jog rather than walk. because the fact that you kept yourself moving, I think that's how sprinters have so much injuries. You know, they stop, you know, and then they start again.
Lachie, what you talked about, you know, you gradually built this volume up and up and up, but you were never tempted to go as high as Bedford. Do you know what you were doing right at your real peak as in your winter before your best summer? What sort of volume were you doing at that?
The miles I would be doing was roughly between 90 and 100. And then again, remember that, you know, prior to the games, I say from March to the games, I was probably doing, as I say, between 95 and 100. That was over 3 sessions. That was running to my work. And usually I ran straight into the hospital, which was 4 miles, because I was never a great believer in running first thing in the morning. Because you get up out of bed and everything's tired, everything's seized up. You don't go out and jump into a car and on the motorway and zoom down the motorway at 70 miles an hour. You give it a bit of time to warm up. So I'd went at lunchtime. And then when I came back, I would do 10 miles on the way back. I'd run up the main road, used to run by the road down here.
So although you did 4 miles into work, you didn't really consider
The
that
4 miles was
training?
just I'd run into my work, just loosened you up. Funny thing is, in the winter mornings, I'd go in, the lads used to joke about it, I get the use of the professor's shower. You know, one of the lockers as well. And then I used the boiler room for my drying room, which was quite handy. We used to run in there, and
so three times a day, I've heard, you know, that seems quite unusual kind of training for folk in the past.
well, most people worked actually then.
Because they were
And
working.
if they did 3 times a day, you'd find that their job allowed that. They'd maybe have a certain job that they allowed to run to and from their work, plus a session at lunchtime. The benefit of me running to my work was, say I was running in the snow or the rain, I'd be ready to work at 9 o'clock, ding, right, work away. The other lads are coming in, what an awful morning that, isn't it? You know, but because I had that wee run, you know, it just lifted yourself.
Okay. I was brought up in Kings Park in the 70s. The only runners you ever saw running the pile on the streets was either yourself or Frank Clements.
Right.
The only time you saw a runner was an international athlete. And what I find is how much of your time is spent training on your own. Because I know personally myself, when I used to do a bit of running, when I ran in a group I could run a bit faster, but I couldn't motivate myself to do a speed session on my own.
Yeah.
So how did you find that? Or was it just really, you're really self-motivated, you know?
I think what helped that was probably training, you know, doing short recovery. You know, did short recovery training. You know, when you did bulk of it. But then accustomed your legs to being tired. You know, and then once you got accustomed to that, because I think some people run, you know, there's people I raced against, and you can put in the shelves, some of the shelves from like Dick Wedlock, for instance, we'd go out and run a race, and then go for a wee run, a wee jog down after it. I wasn't worth a button. I'd be lucky if I could run 400 metres, because my energy came out on that race. You know, whereas a lot of people, I don't know if John felt that way yourself. You know, whether once you ran, we'll go for a warm down. My warm down was only about 400 metres. Couldn't. This is if I flagged myself. You know, if it was a county race or something like that. But then again, if I was racing 2 events, and if I didn't have the quality in the race, the time I was running the second event, that gave you the oomph, because I was already running the second event tired. And this again came into play where you had the short recovery sessions.
People would think, how did you get that hardness? How did you get that you were able to get that out of yourself? Can you think about how?
Well, I think it was a combination, with the short recovery, doing the bulk of them. As I say, every so often I would do, mainly during the summer months, running up to summer months, I would run 100 yards, 800, flat out. And that tune you to actually tire yourself. It's like swimmers. You know how swimmers can go out and they can compete in the afternoon, but they've already been in the pool that morning. Now, I've often wondered how they do it. You know, they go and swim 2 or 3 miles in a pool. So they must have the same idea, you know, of being able to floor themselves in training. You're saying there about seeing me running in the road. One of the funny things that happened after on the Commonwealth Games, we were building the high flats down the Gorbals there. Used to run along Cumberland Street. I used to get a wee shout from some of the lads that after the Commonwealth Games, one of the lads shouted, "Do you never wear green?" Because I always wore a blue tracksuit. Blue cagoule. So the following morning, I spoke one Clark with his tracksuit and got taken up. So next morning I ran in his tracksuit, which was green with yellow piping. You might have the claps I got. And another funny thing was, used to run the football matches, used to run the Scotland England football matches or Rangers and Celtic matches, and again that was another way of people would ask me, how did you feel running in front of, say, 100,000? I said, well, I used to run in front of football matches. So that got you used to running in front of a crowd. One of the times I was running at Rangers and Celtic, I think it was a cup final. I stripped off the top, a British top, lovely white top, red, white and blue band, lovely big Union Jack. You can't run with that. Then took the bottoms off, pair of green shorts with 3 white stripes. The crowd appreciated it. I was always ready for a laugh. Well, I was actually quite successful at these meetings. You know, they were usually maybe a mile race before it, or a mile race at half time.
Even on that black ash at Hampton?
Yeah, even the black ash. But as I say, this is where Ian McCafferty and I, got together. I mean, as I say, we went head-to-head tussles quite regular. And as I say, when you think back on it, Steve O'Bey and Steve Cram, they complemented each other at the same time. So, and McCafferty and I, when we went down to England, we actually looked down on the English. Whereas you find most people go down to England, God, English, they treat themselves as second best. I know a football team does. But as I say, this is where again the attitude comes in. You've got to have the attitude. And I used to put pride in being one of the when I ran the steeplechase, and I injured myself in the steeplechase at Westlands, and I then transferred on to the 10,000. But what I then, this was Westlands, I think it was Western Districts, which is usually about May, and I thought, right, that's me finished with steeplechasing. So I went back and did roughly January's training for a month, and then I went down to 10,000 metres in 3 days, and I finished third there. And I finished third with the steeplechase the year before, and there again, the attitude came into it again, because it was a big international race, so they allowed the Europeans into the 10,000 metres. And as the race progressed, I had about 2 miles to go. The field thinned out. You know your English grades there. And of course, the English were all sort of sitting back, and he's German, and the Hungarian next there was a Hungarian, and Haas was the German who was a European champion. I think next they held the European record. So I was then just sitting behind the second group, which was all the English lads, just their own wee race. So it got to a point where the last lap, Mike Keane, I think, could I go, and of course I then broke away from him, and I tried to catch the two in front, which unbeknown to me, I never had a chance of catching it anyway, because they were going hell for leather at it, and of course I didn't have a clue who they were. I never bought athletics people. So I was going out to England running races, not knowing who had run what. And my son came across him and said, well, one time at the Scottish Championships, he was going to run the 1500. And my cousin Jim, he used to wind him up quite a bit, and he was all set to do a fun, take it from the Glen. And he said to him, well, this lad Nick Smith had run a certain time down in England. So the gun went, and Glen just sat behind him. He'd done him the run in, and I said to Glen, why did you do that? He says, I was worried with Nick Smith. So I turned to Jim, I said, it was you that caused that. I said, because you told him what that guy could do. Because if you would have told him, he'd have taken that out. Attitude.
Yeah, I was just really interested in, you talk a lot about your mind and your attitude towards races. In that 1970 race, were you convinced you were going to win? Or was
not
it?
win. I thought I could get a medal.
Yeah.
Because I was saying to Glen, when I ran the Scottish, the 10,000 metres championships in Meadowbank, I did it a month before that. I ran 13, was it say, 25 I ran there. And Rick Wedlock, Hobmate, he was second, but I think Rick was like 200 metres behind me. And I had said to Rick, I said, right, we'll take a lap for a lap. After 4 or 5 laps, Rick says, I'm tired. So I said, right, just sit in. So I just started rolling out the laps, and Dick eventually fell back. But I took that, as I say, I won that by about 200 yards. You know, and I've got a photograph, and I've shown it to a few people. It was taken at the finish, and there must be about 8 people in the stand watching it. Scottish Championship, Friday night. You know, when I went to the games, you know, Ian Stewart that morning, Saturday morning, sitting in this wall with my wife at the time, Doreen, and he said, "How are you feeling?" I said, "That's what worries me. I feel perfect." You know, and I did. Felt great, because usually you feel good before a race, you run bad. You know, because you think, oh, this is good, and somebody sticks a boot in for some reason. But when the gun went, I was determined, no matter who went, I was going with them. You know, and thinking, well, if everything goes okay, I should get a medal. But as the race progressed, you know, and I can't remember when Clark and Taylor broke away, but I just got out of the pack and latched right onto them. You know, and then as the laps progressed, I thought, the nearer I get to the finish, the better. And about 2 laps to go, I thought, they've slowed down. Which I don't think they had, but it was just the way I felt. You know, I was going to take it on 2 laps to go. And I don't know how many times I've kicked myself or not. You know, because it was so easy to, when I started sprint, there's so much left. But as I say, that was the attitude then. I thought, right, no matter who goes, I'm going with them. But as I say, 3 laps to go, I thought, right, I definitely get third, because I looked around at the corners and see the gap behind. I definitely get third. And then the Clark passed Taylor going down the back straight, and I thought, right, I can have him. And yet, when I finished, Clark shook his hand and says, "Sorry, I was the one to beat you more than the night with mine," which was true. And as I say, I think he notched up about 28 world records over his career. So, and yet I ran against him at the 3-8, that was what was it? Before the Crystal Palace, White City, no cinder track at the White City, and I got second during the race down there. They probably didn't even know me at the time. And I don't know how much money he got being an amateur. I never even got a prize. The money we got, I think, was the expenses. Just doing what the politicians did, fiddle them. There's only pounds we fiddled, what thousands. If anybody else has got any other questions?
I've got a question. I remember competing down at Glasgow Athletics Games one Saturday afternoon.
No point.
And then I got on the train to head back up to Glasgow, and I ended up talking to you and said, "Why weren't you at the games today? I never saw you racing." Which, a guy that loves racing. And so what I'm really interested, are you still into playing with wee boats, and how is that?
Regular.
I don't know whether you want to explain what the wee boats are. I mean, something
well,
to know about.
I was always interested in model aeroplanes. When I started, when I was at school, everybody did it. They bought these big plastic kits and built them up. So I took that stage forward, got a pair of divider and increased the sizes and made the wooden ones and used control light. Radio control wasn't a thing then. You stood in a circle and these aeroplanes flew around you. And then I got married in '68 and moved to Glasgow. As I say, just stayed with my mother-in-law, Army Crescent, just about 400 yards of patrol flights from here. And so I went over to Queen's Park a lot with my wife during the last summer night. And here was this boat club. Oh, I'll build a model boat. You know, so I started building model boats then. And so that was me. And of course, 2 or 3 years, I've got 3 models of the Waverley, and I sold these. But I didn't build them to sell. People just said, I'll buy them off you. Right, no, we build a better one. And I did. You know, but as I say, over the years, I would say I was as keen in the likes of model ships and aircraft as I was running.
So how's your friend and my friend Les Bigger? I haven't seen him for years.
His license is doing not too bad. I phone him every so often.
Right. Still smoking?
No, I think he's a couple of wine classes. That was a funny thing with Les. He was at Munich and he was in the next door room to us, and so I went down to the track the day we were running the heats, and I was holding his fags at the bottom of the on the track, Les's fags, and he's running 100 metre heats, and he just get beaten by a fraction of making the next heat. You know, and I said that to him. I said, well, later on, I said, well, you think you're smoking then, you do that. And his coach, Jim Bradley, he wouldn't let him smoke in the gym. Les went through to Edinburgh, he was coached by Jim Bradley. I believe Jim Bradley actually applied for a job as a national coach. At one time they got knocked back, and that was when he had George McNeil as the world record holder for 110 metres. He then went to Australia, and then coached an Australian to beat that record. And so Scotland lost out.
Lachie, kind of bringing back to this question of what the youth of today need to do to bring themselves up to your standards. You've had a go at answering it, and the answer you gave was fairly similar to one I heard from Steve Jones a few months ago. When he was asked what's gone wrong with endurance running today, and he said, well, they're overcomplicating things, you just want to get out there and run.
You need to be a chemist.
Is it really that simple?
It is really. But I don't think that people are prepared to do it. The Jim Alder, I've talked to Jim about a couple of years ago. I met Jim Alder in the airport in Canada. That was Alberta. You know, I hadn't seen him for years. And the guy comes on reading a magazine on flying, taps me on the shoulder. Oh, Jim, I hadn't seen him for years. And again, we spoke about that. You know, even though he coaches down in Warpa, and he was saying that it's hard to get him to do the bulk. And the bulk to me is the start. You know, it's easy to add speed on, but once you've got the strength and endurance, some people actually get it. They do a bit of weights. Well, I was never into weights, but some people are if it works for them. Fair enough. My own son actually one time he was wanting to do weights because he went down to England, and he was still, because he was in the British Miners Club, and they put the races on, there'd be so many races on during the summer months with the pacemakers. So he'd get out to a few of these races and we speak to these English lads, and they're in the gym and they're doing their weight training. So I knew nothing about weights, I wasn't really interested in, although I did have a pair of hand weights, which I made for the dental hospital out of lead. And they used them a couple of times at Westland, but only using the Westlands because of that extra weight in your hands, and they were only together 3/4 pound.
Just run with it?
Just run with them, 3/4 pound in the two of them. But anyway, he came back up and he's wanted to do weights. Of course I knew enough about him, so Glasgow Athletics Club took him up to St Columbus for John Toner, trained the lads in weights. So I went there and speak to John, and so they got these sessions made in the gym, and then trained at Posties Park in Dumbarton, a great wee place, you know, new floors and cracked floors with the weights drop and things like that, in a typical wee gym, you know. So they then started doing weights, and I said, now, there was 3 of the lads that were into it, and I said, right, I'm not winning any competitions, you know, do what you're supposed to do, but no competition, you know, and so they were in Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we were training at weekends, but the dogs were doing their running. So Glen, about a year later, he ran a race in down in Greenock, and he ran second to this lad, and I said, I could have beat that guy. You know, I was really annoyed with him. And then it came out, I was too tired. I told him the sessions. He then admitted he wasn't doing the sessions I was telling him to do. He was too tired of his weights. You know, him and this other lad competing, who could lift the heaviest? You know, so many sessions. You know, that was my idea of weights. Right, no weights. His performance after that, shot back up again. But I say that's...
What we were discussing earlier on at the endurance coach is an issue which is, you know, alive in athletics at the minute, which is that track and field athletics is crudely a middle class sport. Whereas I think in your days, was it much more dominated in the state school system?
I would say in the schools it was slightly, but a lot of the other schools were into rugby. And the ones that were into rugby were really into athletics. Because I went to there was the day of leaving academy, the teacher took us up to the Scottish Relay Championships, Schools Relay Championships. I can't remember how we got on, but I never ran all that well. That was as a team, as a 4-man team. That was only once I went to school. You know, although the teacher gave us running, you know, out in the park during the summer months. But the thing was, when you look at the likes of the you call it statistics, in the Athletics Weekly, you would look at the statistics, the top 50 in the world, or the top 50 in Britain, at certain distances. Even the marathons, you'd have quite a few Scots in there. You'd have a few Scots at 10,000 metres. And all the distances, you'd Scots in all of these statistics. You know, mainly in the British ones. You sometimes have quite a few of them in the world statistics as well. In columns, we would tell you more about that. You know, but in these days, but after I think the NAPU era, I think the standard tended to drop after that. I don't know if we're right there, John. You know, Colin might confirm that. But the standard seemed to drop after that. But as I said there about McCafferty myself, after McCafferty and I finished, there was still a few good runners about. Alistair Hutton would be racing that year, you know, and then the other ones, you know, in the other clubs maybe for a few years after that. But after that, to me it seemed to die. You know, and then after that, I get then more involved in my son's running. My son was born in 1970, so it would take about 15 years.
I just remember my dad taking me to things like the Rangers sports where it's, you know, those huge crowds. You know, I realised they weren't just there for the athletics, but the thing is they did watch it.
And when the punters went to the five-a-sides, you know, that was another funny thing. Used to go to a lot of the socials, and they used to meet with the Rangers and Celtic players and chat away about their training and say, tell them, you guys don't know what training is. They're arranging to go to play golf the following afternoon, Rangers and Celtic players, and they used to laugh, and I'm running at these weeks. I know time I watch football, and I went to race, and they get tickets to watch the game, and the punters are not hailing at each other, and the footballers are the best of pals. I always thought that was funny. You know, they never trained, and then a few years later, Jim Craig, he played for Celtic, and he was a dental student. He used to come into the lab and chat away, and he was telling me, he says, Celtic then had won the Lisbon Cup, well, the European Cup was it? Some interesting football. The European Cup was in Lisbon, right? So he was telling me, he says, big job. He says, he's got his old training hard. He says, that's the difference. He says, we've got a 22-man team. He says, see if you'll play well on this Wednesdays, you're out on the Saturday, somebody else is in your place, so you had to keep your standard up. And for these good number of years, Celtic, I think, was top team in Scotland for a few years, and that was how they'd done it, they got training. You know, and I don't even know whether, even today, they still do warm-ups in football. I've never seen them. And I watch the occasional match on the telly right enough, but only the ones that matter, such as the Scotland going through the World Cup. Which I know is a no-no. All these facilities out here for football, you know, and the standard of Scottish football. Athletics is better than football. Yeah, and what have we got for athletics? You know, certainly don't have a place like this for athletics. And I said to a few officials years ago when I was running my peak, I said, what we really need is a big tank hanger. You know, and just don't even need to heat it. I said, you can generate your own heat, but just give us the facilities so so we could train indoors during the winter. As simple as that, but never happened.
We've probably got time for about 2 or 3 more questions before we get chucked out of this hire.
Lachie, you mentioned the speed of the reps that you did, you talked about 57s and things like that. I think just giving us appreciation for the speed that you were doing the different sessions, the long rep sessions and the shorter ones. So what I remember years ago when Glen used to come down to Craig was I just couldn't believe the speed that he was doing those reps. I don't think I've actually seen anyone running at that speed since then.
Your body gets attuned to it. I think this was it. The thing is, I went to one of these seminars down at England, with the British Miners Club. It was Peter Cole who was doing one of the talks, and he had this 5-tier system that I don't know how they still talk about it, But to me, it was the type of running I was doing. I just called it interval running. He had it 5-tier. As I say, I would run 200s, 300s, 600s, and occasionally 800s. That was the bulk distances which I ran, and then during the summer months I say that then the recovery would be increased and the repetition would be faster. And how I know the times I was running, I would occasionally run them, as I say, with Graham Grant and Dick Hodwick. And I say, right of the watch, Harmony. No, I have no watch.
You just knew how to get the pace as well.
Yeah. It's funny that 10,000 metres I can run there, excluding your first couple of laps, maybe your last couple. Most of the laps are within half a second. It always amazed me how I could do that, but it's just a pace you get into. You just get into a certain pace, and you got to the halfway stage, and maybe you win the halfway stage, and you feel a wee bit tired. So they didn't put a wee bit more effort in. Your lap count, your lap counters there, and they're relaying the lap times. And of course, I don't know how many people say to me, it's awful boring, I get bored running 5,000. I says, but when you're running it, says if you're running it as a race, you shouldn't be bored because you'll be thinking your laps. And of course, every time I run, your lap counters are coming round and you're getting what time you've run. You'll be telling you your time. You then calculate what laps at, what time have I run. But I never found them boring.
Just doing that mental
Just doing mental arithmetic,
Lachie, at what age did you first start racing over 5,000 and 10,000 metres?
It would probably be, as I say, I was in the junior ranks up to about 2021. I was doing mainly, as I say, steeplechase. Yeah. But even doing steeplechase, I started dabbled in, I think my first Scottish Championship was 1965. That was 3 miles. Because over the years I'd won about 13 Scottish Championships. Well, some people would say 12, but one of them was actually this cross-country one was won by a New Zealander. I was reading this last night. He couldn't hold the title because of New Zealand. He ran the title. I got the title. Yeah, he ran the guest. But so a lot of people say, well, they take that off. Only won 12. If you include that one, that was 13, and that was the record for Scottish Championships held, I think. It was 13, and then Glen broke that to 23, even 23 over the years.
So you were about 22 then?
Lachie, you said there about your reps and went up to 800. Did you ever do reps over a mile or 2 mile reps?
No.
No?
I just felt that the distance runs should take care of that, really. And I know what you're saying, because when I went down to the Greenock Club, and I moved down to Greenock from the dental hospital, I used to go down to the Battery Park with some of the Spangle Valley boys. That's another laugh. And they were around the Battery Park. It was naughty. Went down to the Battery Park and we were running 6 400s, and we do 10 200s. So I ended up chatting with Cammy Spence. Right, neat up these. We'll try and do 16. So we started doing 16 4s and 20, 30 to 25 200s. And one of the doctors worked in Inverclyde Royal, I worked there on the Fridays. and Wally Reid, so he comes down this night, and we're running, so we've got 6 done, and then 7. He says, how many more are we doing? I said, we're going to do 16. Jesus, he said, if I'd have known that, I should have been a packed lunch. But there again, that proved the club as well, because again, that increased their volume. Laurie, I was at a sports thing a couple of weeks ago down in Greenup, and Laurie Spence came up to me and said, chatting away, and I said, are you still running? He says, no, I'm coached still. You know about coaching now. I says, all right. He says, well, I've coached him the way you coached me. I never coached him, but it was because his brother Jim. I used to say to Jim, get him to do this, I get him to do that. But one of the things was his 10-mile run. I always found his 10-mile run. And Norrie's wife will testify to that as well.
That's the biggest coaching achievement, Lord Lachie. Take my wife in 44 minutes for 39 minutes for a 10k.
And that was my twilight years, because I used to run at lunchtime at Port Glasgow, run up to the Park Ray, and Norrie's wife started coming out. So I'd be coming down the road, so I'd probably meet her, and I'd drop with another couple of laps. It's over the period of time I'd be telling Anne what she's maybe try, including just instead of just steady running. A lot of people, even though I was good, my next door neighbour, 50-year-old, going out doing steady running to keep fit. But what you should do is, once you feel a wee bit, I say, have a wee couple of 100-yard increases in pace. Just increase in pace, I says, just drop back. I said, doesn't need to be fast. Do that about 3 or 4 times, and I said, what you'll find the next time you come out, you run a lot more fluent, rather than the steady pace.
What she said was that you never shut up, so you didn't know how fast you were running.
I think you're right. I was a 1,500-metre runner mainly, and only ran 600s on the track, but I used to do 10 miles quite often under an hour during the week, so I think that is a neglected area, just running.
Well, Tommy, I spoke to Tommy Boyle, this was from my Keener running, and then and I said to him, he just lacks endurance. He says, oh no, he doesn't, because we all what Tommy gets him to do. And I said, but to me, there's not enough distance running here. I said, it's funny that all his competitors, they all have good 1,500-metre times. He hasn't won. So he did run one about a couple of weeks later in the damn park, and he nearly got Coffee Glen. And he's so much so he thought he was set up, you know. But I said to him, I said, well, Tommy, I says, how is it? In a fast first lap, the King's nowhere, the second lap. I says, in a slow run race, my money's on him, because he's fastest in that last lap, as long as it's slow, you know. But to me, that was, he didn't have the endurance to put 2 fast laps together. You could do a slow one and then a fast one. And it's the same, any athlete that can do that, it's just they need to work on their endurance.
Couple more questions and then...
Lachie, I've enjoyed your talk. When are we going to read your book?
Oh, so that the use of the word translate.
Just a quick question. I know all the different races that preparing for them is different, but one of the things I've always wondered about, say for instance a 10k distance, about running on a pair of fresh legs, like what sort of taper should you be doing like the week before a 10k or something like that?
If you're fit enough to actually run a 10k, and as I say, it's your individual fitness. You know, you work cutting your week. If you want, if it's a really important race, you'd actually alter your week's training just by cutting it down a bit. But what you would do is you'd maybe run a shorter distance, but a couple of fast sections. If you're just doing steady running, stick a couple of fast bits in it. But just run 3/4 your training distance, between half and 3/4 your training distance. That's what I would have done. You know, but I always felt that your legs can lose the feeling of tiredness. And when I eased off too much for a race, I had a bad run. It's a funny thing, but so I then altered my training, as I say, but I would also train relatively hard, but not the endurance side of it. Speed side, more the speed side of it, which still meant your legs were getting tired, and it was over a shorter period of time. Whereas if you're running endurance distance, you're drawing the endurance out of yourself. Over the shorter distance, you know, it's come out in a shorter space of time, so you'll recover quicker from that. And I always felt that's where the short recovery sessions come in. You could recover quicker, because a lot of the races I run, cross country or hill races, I used to always put the effort in when I got to the top of the hill. And you hear a lot of people say, no, to try something out, try them out on the hill. Yeah, what's the point? Why knock yourself out and up a hill? Wait till you get to the top. And I don't know how many races I actually won. I get to the top of that hill. Beating McCafferty one of the times doing that as well. Because he tried to run away and up hills Lachie Stewart, his training ground. And at one of the points I said I was going to stick my boot, and I did. And he got second, and then later on, in one of the lobby already Glasgow Hill, went off the course. Andy Brown laughed at that. He says, he lives there.
Is that one of your reports?
I never got a student to shoot that day. He used to always some. Hugh Barrow, funny enough, was quite funny. He wrote a page of all McCaffrey's excuses. Again, it was mental attitude. Because I ran an hour race in Meadowbank at the Moon Highland Games. To see if I could break the world record, and did it. And I stayed there overnight. We were going to run the 3000 on the Saturday, and you appeared at Ian. Brilliant day, so I'm running short around Ian. Great day, you know. Then I'll go for the course record. You know? So after 2 laps, I stopped the boot in. Ian wasn't even second. So he just gave up. You know, and yeah, I was there to be beaten. I'd run an hour before, the night before I backed myself. The other thing about Hugh Barrow was I beat Hugh in a race. I can't remember the distance, but I beat him over the one in. And out to Westlands the following week, and there's Hugh hammering up the track, 100 metres wide. Johnny Stirling coached him to the park, and Hugh's hammering up the straight. And he says, I beat you, wee bugger, yet. I said, you'll not beat me doing that session. I says, he needs endurance. So I then started chatting to him. I says, you need to be strong enough at the last 100 metres to produce 100 metres. And that's what I forgot about. You know, how strong you are 100 yards to go. And again, as I said, I don't know why, but I could always raise a gallop over the last 100 metres. And McCafferty was one of the hardest to beat over the last 100. You know, because it's Shawfield Stadium, which is a short track. Him and I passed each other about 5 times. And up that wee short straight. And through the line, I don't know who. I couldn't have told you who won, but I got the decision. And he was the hardest one to beat. And yet I beat Lachie Stewart, you know, in the 10 out of the 3 miles, Wolverhampton for the British Championship. That was 2 years before the Commonwealth. So as I say, it's endurance and speed.
There's a lot of things to think about and reflect upon tonight, so it's been really great that you've come up and given your time. I've really enjoyed myself.
I just hope you can take a bit from that, you know.
The next seminar that we're going to have is, we're moving on from the 60s really and 70s to the 80s, and we've asked Laurie Spence to come and do a seminar and it's 6 o'clock on the 6th of, is it the 6th of May?
Yeah,
6th of May as well. Of course, Laurie's quite involved in coaching some young athletes just now that are doing well in Scotland, so I think it will be useful to see how he's taken some of the things that Lachie's been talking about perhaps as well, now that we know that you're involved in giving him some ideas and translated into some of the young athletes that are doing well just now in Scotland. So I hope some of you can come to that and maybe tell other folks that it's on as well. We'll maybe try and get a bigger room. So can we just thank Lachie for his time?